Good evening and welcome to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. With you, as always, from the NFL Network, NFL.com, Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager from Sumer Sports, Sumersports.com. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. You can find my show at 810WHB.com, 2 to 6 Central Time. We are talking Chiefs football, people, and a lot of it here. We've got a lot of things we want to cover today as the Kansas City Chiefs have risen to the top of the AFC stack yet again. Are the Chiefs truly the team to beat in the AFC? Will no one knock them off? I've been asking that question. Is the AFC over? By that, I mean, will they never relinquish the number one seed? How does Patrick Mahomes not win the MVP at this point? Was the big hit on JuJu Smith-Schuster that knocked him from the game? Was that actually legal? Is Kadarius Toney the real deal? How good can he be? Is Clyde Edwards-Helaire done with the Kansas City Chiefs? How much confidence should there be in this offensive line, especially with Andrew Wylie being banged up? Trent McDuffie is back and making an impact. How good can he be? Are the Chargers just a bad matchup? They haven't proven to be a great team yet. They were 27-24 with the Chiefs in the first matchup. What do we make of this second game between the two teams? And what do you think of Justin Herbert? At the risk of Eric Eager's head exploding, what are the thoughts on Justin Herbert? We'll get to that and find out if his head does truly explode. And, of course, we'll get our predictions, who wins this game. But let's start up at the top. The AFC is the Chiefs right now. They're a full game clear of everybody. If you want to call it a half game clear of the Buffalo Bills because of the head-to-head matchup, fine. They are undisputedly at the number one spot for the AFC. Jeff, is that where they stayed the rest of the way?
I don't know. It's a tough – I'll answer this question two ways. One, I'll say that they're playing the best in the AFC right now. I still think Buffalo ends up winning the AFC. It's a lot of time left. You know, it's hard. I mean, they were the top seed going into the Bengals game last year and lost that game and lost the AFC top seed, right? That was like week 15. Am I right about that?
I think week 17 was
week
the
17.
Bengals loss.
Yeah. And so there's still some games out there that are going to be intriguing. The Bengals should have Jamar Chase back by the time they play them. The Seahawks are an interesting team now, a much more interesting game matchup. This game this week would be different if there are healthier players. Now, I think Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are supposed to play, so that might change the calculus, but I would still pick the Chiefs. But if they lost, I wouldn't be surprised. And I could see another weird game with the Colts coming up down the stretch. I still think they're probably going to lose a couple more times. I don't know what Buffalo will do, but I just don't feel as if – I think one thing about that Buffalo game that affects the Chiefs is that game that they lost to Minnesota felt a lot like the Chiefs lost to Tennessee in 2019, where they were the dominant team in that game. Some funky stuff happened at the end. They wound up losing. They were 6-4. The Ravens were running away with the AFC, and the Chiefs never lost again. And so I could easily see this being not so much a wake-up call for Buffalo, but a moment of truth. And I don't think it really matters where they end up playing. I still think they're probably the best team in the AFC. So, yeah, I think they got a really good chance of holding on to it, but I'm not so sold on it happening just yet.
Okay. Eric, where are you? Is this thing race over? And by that, not necessarily that the Chiefs can lose every game, obviously, but are we at a point now that they have grabbed the one seed and they won't let go of it?
I think Jeff's correct. I mean, I think that the Bills are a good team that's going through some things. I think that, you know, the one thing that's maybe a leak that we never realized, I call it the rest of the AFC West. The rest of the AFC West sucks. And so, like, we all thought that the Chargers and the Raiders the Raiders lost to Jeff Saturday and the Colts, right? Like, we thought that the AFC East would be like the rest of the AFC West. Yep. And that has made things a little weird for this calculus, because I firmly believe that on a neutral field, the Bills would be favored against the Chiefs right now, especially if they got a little healthier with like Trey White and you know, the linebacker position and stuff like that. But the Chiefs have a better road of it, right? No doubt. I mean, Buffalo even has like a short week Thursday night game in Detroit against a tough Detroit team that's on a 2-game winning streak right now, by the way. And they have a tougher like AFC East. Like, they're not even leading their own division right now. They're only 58% to win the AFC East for the betting markets, whereas the Chiefs are like around 80% to win the AFC West. So to me, I think The Bills are still slightly better than the Chiefs, but the Chiefs have a fairly solid track to the 1 seed. So I'd put the Chiefs probably 60% to get the 1 seed in the AFC. And then, to Jeff's point, I think, once you get there, obviously the Bills have shown that they can come into Arrowhead and win a football game. But, if you have the 1 seed, it's just such an edge. So it's not a lock, but I think the Chiefs and their fans, should feel very confident right now.
Yeah, I would agree. I'll give you a couple of reasons, that the Chiefs have you have reason to be confident. Have you seen the schedules?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The rest of the way?
I mean, dude, the Chiefs haven't played the Broncos yet. Although the interesting thing is, like, the Broncos, it's really funny. The Broncos defense, is kind of like 2013 Seattle Seahawks good. And it's just that Russell Wilson is so freaking bad that team is terrible. But the Chiefs have 4 more AFC West games, and every team in the AFC West is underachieving, right? So whereas every team, to your point about the Bills, every team in the AFC and things broke nicely for the Chiefs in that the Rams stink, right? You talk about Seattle, that's gone a little bit better, Jeff, but the Rams, that was supposed to be a game for the Chiefs, and the Rams are a CFL team right now. So it's moved a little. It's moved. Things have broken nicely for the Chiefs for the second straight year.
Yeah, but let me quantify it, because Curtis broke it out. He starts breaking. Usually every year it gets earlier and earlier where he starts breaking it. Curtis Siebel works on my radio show with me. Starts breaking down the playoffs and what's left. What are the head-to-head wins? The head-to-head losses for each team, and then the strength of schedule. Are you aware of this? That the Kansas City Chiefs have the second easiest schedule. If you put up all the contenders right now, Chiefs, Dolphins, Titans, Ravens, Jets, Bills, Pats, Chargers, Bengals, Colts, everyone who could be a contender. The second easiest schedule belongs to the Kansas City Chiefs. If people haven't heard it, just to quantify it quickly: Chargers 5-4, Rams 3-6, Bengals 5-4, Broncos 3-6, Texans 1-7-1, Seahawks 6-4, Broncos 3-6, Raiders 2-7. Overall, 28-44-1, a 390 winning percentage is what's left on the schedule. Now, clearly, when you have the Texans, that really drives it down. When you've got a 1-7-1 there, and the Raiders, frankly, at 2-7. Buffalo Bills' schedule is 500. Okay, for them, Browns at 3-6, Lions at 3-6, and then Pats 5-4, Jets 6-3, Dolphins 7-3, Bears 3-7, Bengals 5-4, Pats 5-4. The team that has the easiest schedule.
Chiefs.
No,
Baltimore. No, they're second.
The Ravens. Yeah, the Ravens have. Ravens are cupcake down the stretch.
Listen to that, and they're only 1 game back of Kansas City. So to me, if you were to pick why they wouldn't get there, it may very well be the Ravens, who, frankly, if you go back and look, they've lost close games. They're a better team, better coach. Now, what is a veteran quarterback who's throwing the ball better, also a threat with his legs. They're a bitch in close games. I mean, I don't know why they're not better, because they have a lot of the recipes you would think to be good at close games.
The Ravens have led by 10 or more points in every game this year.
Right, but they end up being dragged down into close games, and they've lost 3 of them. And my point to this is, I think that will turn around, and they will start winning the close games. But it may not matter when you play 3-7 Carolina, 3-7 Jacksonville, 3-6 Denver, 3-6 Pittsburgh, 3-6 Cleveland, 4-6 Atlanta, 3-6 Pittsburgh, and 5-4 Cincinnati. It's not just easier. When you see 360 to Kansas City, or 390 for Kansas City, and 360 in the win percentages, you're like, it's pretty much the same. When you look a little bit closer, all of their teams suck.
Yeah, it's consistently
it's not
bad.
The Raiders and the Texans, torpedoing it, a lot. There's no winners there. They're all dogs, except for the Bengals at the end.
Well, I guess the question to be asked is, even though it is an extra game that you're not playing, does the 1 seed make that big a difference this year based on who's probably going to be in the playoffs? Because you look at, we're talking about this on the Border Patrol this morning. I feel like you're going to have Chiefs win the West, Ravens wins the North, Titans win the South, and I picked the Bengals and the Bills to still win the AFC East. But again, I think Miami is going to be in the playoffs. I think the Bengals will be there. And I think the Chargers will be there. I don't see the Jets making it. So you're talking about 7 teams that are legit teams with all good defenses, all good quarterbacks, and all have different ways of beating you. And so, Eric's probably head's about to explode here. I'm talking about the bye, but the bye didn't mean anything to the Bengals. They didn't have it last year. They won the AFC. It didn't mean anything to the Rams. Didn't mean anything to the Buccaneers. And so, have we been overselling it the last couple of years?
The bye, Jeff, I think it's interesting because you clearly want the bye, but there is an aspect of it shakes things out easier. Like if the 2 seed's a fraud, generally it actually makes your path harder if you're a 1 seed, if that makes sense. Because so I think of there have been 2 seeds in the NFL that have been frauds the last, during the history, and giving them a non-zero chance to lose in round 1. When you look at simulations, it actually makes it harder on the 1 seed because a team that the better team can often face you in the AFC or NFC championship game. To your point, but I think the bye matters in that injuries are just such a big part of football now. When you look at even more when the COVID has had an effect on player health and not just being sick with it, but you had the whole 2020 offseason where guys were unable to train and things like that, where you just see injuries. You don't want to take that chance. So you do want the bye over anything. But I do agree with you, Jeff. From 2012 to 2019, every single team that made the Super Bowl had a bye, had a bye in the first round of the playoffs. Obviously, that was going to get harder when they switched to 1 bye, but it does still matter. It's just that it matters a little bit less. To your point about the Ravens, though, that's a good leak. The issue with the Ravens is that's a team that loses a 1-score game to the Giants. That's a team that loses a huge lead to the Dolphins and the Bills. So they slip up every once in a while, and they're not consistent enough in the passing game to me to be that team's 3-7. They're clearly going to win in that game.
I think that's fair. I mean, listen, I think
I love Lamar as much as anybody, but that's their issue, right?
Yeah, I think the one thing that it's a 3-team race. Can we agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm with you, Jeff. I got the same teams making it right now. I don't have the Jets being legit. I'm not buying it. Zach Wilson is not. They are commercial fodder if they do get in.
Yeah.
Shame on anyone who lets them get in. Out of the Bengals, Chargers, Titans. Who was the other wild card you had?
I had Bengals, Dolphins, Chargers.
Yeah, Bengals, Dolphins, Chargers. Shame on any of them who let the Jets get in front of them because there's no reason for them to be there. They're not good enough. But I mean, I think we are looking at it. And I think what's amazing is we're looking at the same teams.
No.
Right? It's the Ravens, the Bills, and the Chiefs. In Kansas City, we have no problem with it. I think, most of the NFL will have no problem with it, except for the team that you're rooting for that sucks. But I mean, the formula is not that hard. Really good coach, good to great quarterback. Really good to great coach, really good to great quarterback. Put those 2 things together, you're the favorite, right? Because the Ravens are still there. And it used to be about the Ravens defense. Well, the defense isn't anything special, right? I mean, it's getting better coming along, but they're there because they can score. They're there because Lamar Jackson. And they've overcome injuries along the way. I had a caller call me today and say, hey, they're playing without Mark Andrews. They've had this guy go down, that guy. The running back's going down. Their number 1 running back is again a no-show this year and hurt again. And yet here they still are. People can get excited about the Jets and even the Dolphins. Maybe the Dolphins do have the new hot young head coach. Maybe the next Andy Reid and John Harbaugh is on their sideline. Same thing, when we talk about the NFC tomorrow on 2 Deep, maybe the Vikings have the new hot guy. But if you don't have that thing figured out, you got a problem. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that they're here. And I'm always amazed at when the Chiefs stub their toe early and everybody gets down on the Chiefs, and in the power rankings, they fall to 5. And I think the Pro Football Talk power rankings today had the Bills at 7.
9. 9.
9?
9.
I mean, come on. Come on.
Yeah. It's not college football. I mean, you're right. It's not college football, and that's why I don't get too worked up. This would be a different conversation if it was week 15 and you're talking about, okay, there's only so many games left, so many ways to catch up. I just think all these teams that we're talking about are going to have their own challenges. They all have their own set of flaws. The Chiefs amazingly have avoided the kind of injuries that every other team has been dealing with. And you do wonder, do they get bit towards the end of the season in ways that other teams have been bit at the start of the season or midway through it, which is what happened to them in 2020.
I don't know about that though, Jeff. I think it's like they had injuries to Trey Smith. They've had maybe not injuries, but Frank Clark and Willie Gay have missed a combined 6 games with suspensions. Trent McDuffie was injured.
Yeah. But it's not the Chargers or the Niners the Bills are going through. It's just totally different.
I object to that very premise. I think it is a lot closer to what the Chargers. If I have to listen to one more time the pissing and moaning about Charger injuries, let me tell you something. Here's what doesn't get brought up. Because I got pissed about this today. You know, if you don't want to have injuries, don't draft Bosa's. They don't play their senior year in college. Yeah. They've been hurt their whole time in college. They're always hurt. When you draft, I mentioned this today.
Don't give Keenan Allen and Mike Williams $20 million a year because the guys have not stayed on the field.
Derwin James missed more time than he played, and they gave him an extension. And then they sit around and go, "We're snake bit." I don't know how it happens to us. How does this happen?
Don't be the only team to give J.C. Jackson an injury when he's got a 7th toe coming out of his foot that you have to remove at the beginning of the season. That's. People and I'm going to be hard on Herbert down in a little bit here, and people will, but sometimes when it we all have those people in our lives who's there's always something, right? This guy's a day late and $1 short. Those are the Chargers, and it's what Soren said. It's I guess you couldn't have predicted the 5th Joey Bosa injury. It's
but here's the deal. Here's the deal. And the point I'm making here is that a lot of these teams that we're talking about right now who haven't played great are going to start getting healthier. Mm-hmm. That's the point we made. And so whatever the power rankings are right now, at some point that evens out as you get deeper into the year and guys start coming back. And that's what affects what happens in the second half.
But I think that part of that is Chiefs defense. Everybody's like, oh, look at the Chiefs defense is 28th in DVOA and whatever. And oh, wow, they got Trent McDuffie back. They get Joshua Williams, a Division II player, up to speed, playing the other corner. They get, they
get Frank Clark back. They get Willie Jones back.
They get Willie Gay back. And
it's different when you're talking about Pro Bowl players. It's different if you're talking about guys who are difference makers.
But the problem is that's the difference. That is part of the Chiefs deal. The Chiefs, like I said it today, the Chiefs don't need the great tires. They don't need great hubcaps. The whole car is pat. Right. So when we talk about players who really matter to them, the players that really matter to the Chiefs are Willie Gay and Trent McDuffie, because the quarterback is the rest of the car. And so when you get Trent McDuffie back, you get Willie Gay back, it's 17 points against the Titans, 17 points against the Jags. Now all of a sudden the defense doesn't look so bad.
Play this game with me. All right. Just bear with me. First of all, J.C. Jackson is a loss. Why is that a loss? Well, because he had good rankings and played good football playing for the New England Patriots, and then the Chargers gave him a bunch of money. Okay?
He's a Pro Bowl corner.
He's a Pro Bowl corner.
He's had a lot of interceptions the last 2 years.
For who?
The Patriots.
For the Patriots. Yeah. And right now the Patriots, who lost him, according to PFF, Eric's old place of employment, do you know where the Patriots corners rank? I mean, because they lost J.C. Jackson. They must be at the bottom, right? Do you know where their corners rank?
Where?
On the PFF grades? Anyone? Number 2 and number 8. You wonder why? Because they know how to coach corners, right? And J.C. Jackson is nowhere to be found. I don't know where he is, and I don't even know if he qualifies. I could dig down through it. But he's nowhere to be found, okay? And Asante Samuel gets credit. He's at 47. We've said all along, I know the grades aren't the end-all, be-all. They aren't. But they're at least a place to start with a discussion. And my point is this. J.C. Jackson, they're without J.C. Jackson. Yeah, a guy the Patriots didn't think they needed, and they walked on. And frankly, the Chargers grossly overpaid and are asking him to play a different way than he played with the Patriots, and the Patriots just plug and play the other ones. And for that same point, I will say this. We're talking about Pro Bowl players. Okay, well, where would Trent McDuffie rank amongst corners if he had played enough snaps? Based on his grade, where do you think he ranks?
Right now?
Yes.
What has he had, 8 passes thrown in his direction?
He's played 2.5 games.
About it. And one of them against a quarterback.
He's played 3.5 games.
Okay, what is it?
He would be 14th. And so that's my point. We have these perceptions.
All right.
J.C. Jackson's a great player. No, he's not. He's not a great player. He played for a great team with a great defensive coach, and now he's not playing for that team, and he's nothing special. Yet, well, look at all these injuries for the Chargers. Oh, boo-hoo. We don't know the name. People don't know the name Trent McDuffie, and so that can't be anything. 3 years from now when he's a Pro Bowler and if he gets hurt, people will be like, oh, well, they're down Trent McDuffie. Well, he's good. The corners are at their prime their first 4 years in the league.
What happened to the Chiefs when Eric Fisher went down in the AFC Championship game? What happened to their offensive line?
I'll push back a little bit because when he went down for half that year, they went 14-2.
What happened when they played a team that had a good defense and a good pass? I mean, that's what I'm saying. We can't.
He was out against Tampa the first game, right? Like I agree that like there's a tipping point. I feel like the tipping point for these suckier teams is just a little less.
Oh,
like I think it's
sooner, of course.
Yeah,
of course
like that, and that's again because the car is the quarterback for the Chiefs, and everybody else is a little bit. And like that again is just that you're just making an argument about how good Mahomes is, right? Like we don't perceive these things as being that big of perturbations because Pat just he overcomes, right? Whereas Herbert, everybody said he was an amazing quarterback, but the smallest perturbations look like, you completely ruined him type of thing. And that's, the difficulty.
Let me just wrap that point. Listen, 4 games without the kicker where the kicking game went to crap. Yeah, they made a big 59-yarder, but for the most part, the kicking game was a hot mess. They played without him. We mentioned a couple games without Frank Clark, 4 games without Willie Gay Jr., 5 games, I think it was, without Trent McDuffie. Andrew Wylie isn't even the starter. Right? He's not the starter. The starter is Lucas Yang. They were hurt at right tackle before the season ever began, but nobody talks about that. They finished the game with their third right tackle. They will start this game with their third right tackle, but injuries are never brought up. You want to know why? Because the Chiefs win, right? You talk about injuries with the turds. Nobody worries about the teams that are winning. When they're winning, it must be fine. And the biggest reasons are Patrick Mahomes, 1, Andy Reid, 2. Yes, and as long as those 2 things are healthy and on top of their game, they're in a good spot. But they also went into that game. We know they watched their number 1 wideout walk, and then their new number 1, or whatever you want to call him, got his bell rung and was out early in that game, and they still had no problem. Mahomes 330, 4 touchdowns. What did he do? He threw 3 touchdowns to 3 new players. He's thrown touchdowns to 10 players, most in the NFL, 3 brand new receivers in the game against the Jaguars. So when they get hurt,
you're picking Chiefs Super Bowl.
They win.
You're picking Chiefs Super Bowl right now. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm picking a Bills-Chiefs AFC Championship game with it being a virtual coin flip to see who goes. Yes, 100%. And with the Ravens being able to crash that, maybe 40-40 with 20% to the Ravens. Is that fair? You see it?
I'm picking Bills, yeah.
That's fine.
But the whole point I'm making is that all these teams that are kind of wandering around right now in this abyss, and the Chiefs are playing the best right now, but I think they're also the healthiest too, which matters. I think that the Bengals get Jamar Chase back. They're a different team. I think the Ravens obviously had some injuries earlier. They're getting people back. They're going to have a different stretch. The Bills are playing without, 3/4 of their secondary right now and a couple other guys on defense. That matters.
We've talked about the injuries, Eric. Do we ask the question now as the way to phrase it? How does Mahomes not win the MVP?
I think so. I mean, I got into a little bit of it today where people are trying to put Tua in his place, but it feels like with all these guys that are doing really well because of great surroundings, the ball falls off the table, right? We saw Jalen Hurts last night, a guy who I think is having a wonderful season. I think is a really good fit for what the Eagles want to do. Washington football team kind of took him down last night, right? Okay, now he's not in the mix anymore. Josh Allen, an amazing, I think the second best player in the whole league. Josh Allen gets a little bit of an elbow injury, kind of has to press a little bit because the rest of that team is hurt, to Jeff's point. And what is he? He's throwing interceptions. He's throwing the ball to the other team, right? Tua Tagovailoa, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions every game. The last 3 games, 10 yards per pass attempt or more. The last 3 games, they are playing Detroit, they are playing Chicago, and they are playing a bad Cleveland team, right? So what happens when they face an actual team and he gets exposed a little bit? Well, he's not going to be in the mix anymore as the guy to be the MVP. So if Patrick Mahomes continues to put up kind of what he does every single week, which is, spread the ball around, make efficient plays, overcome, weaknesses at tackle and wide receiver, he's the MVP, in my opinion, by a country mile.
Yeah. Do you see, listen, I equated Josh Allen is the Brett Favre in this scenario. That's who everyone wanted to equate Patrick Mahomes to, but he doesn't implode. He doesn't just make mistakes all over the place. Josh Allen, God bless him. I'll take him over just about anybody but Patrick Mahomes because he's trying to make plays. You don't have to try to push him forward, but he's more likely to make that critical bad throw, right? Like if there's a, Brett Favre, quarterback in the Vikings, making the big interception against the Saints, that's more likely to be Josh Allen than Patrick Mahomes, isn't it, Jeff? And isn't that what makes Mahomes the guy?
I think they're the same guy, to be honest with you. I just think that we forget, Eric would know this stat, Mahomes has thrown a lot of interceptable balls over his career, the first 3 or 4 years, just didn't get caught. And so there'd be a different conversation if those numbers were higher. I do think
lucky.
That's one way to put it. But I will say that what he has done, and you see it this year, he's outgrown that. And so you don't see him making those kinds of throws that Josh Allen is still willing to take. And I think he learned that from the AFC Championship game. And I was one of those people who thought after that game ended and he came up to the podium in the press conference and was asked about the interception he threw at the end of the game. And he said, I'd throw that pass again. And that was the wrong answer. The right answer is give your team a chance. And what you've seen this year is more of that. I'll still make the great plays, but I'll give myself a team a chance. I'll give my team a chance by not doing the things that Josh Allen has done the last 2 or 3 weeks.
The comparison, Jeff, which you made a good one. Brett Favre won 3 straight MVPs in the 90s because that was the style of play that won.
It's
MVP.
not an insult to call Josh Allen Brett Favre, by the way.
But Mahomes is Steve Young of that era, right? Where Steve Young led the league.
It's Brett Favre, the charitable Samaritan type, but I'm talking about just the player.
I would, the serial text message sender is the one that I'm, but to me, the Mahomes is Steve Young, right? Where the consistency, the ability to move with your feet, but not have that be a crutch for you. Steve Young led the league in passer rating or yards. He led the league in a major statistical category every single year for 6 straight years. And he only won the 1 Super Bowl, which I think if Steve Young played now, he would win more because the way that he operated is more conducive to now. But I think that those comparisons are apt, and so it's just kind of a styles makes fight thing, isn't it?
Can I ask this question? Who has the better receivers, Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes?
Josh Allen.
Okay, so Patrick Mahomes has.
I mean, if you take Kelsey away, Josh Allen.
Just the overall body of all of them collectively, the skill position players around him, the offensive line. Who has the better talent around them? Josh Allen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that at least that's what I was told when we started this year.
Yeah.
And that's why everyone was picking the Bills, is they're definitively a better team.
So I understand what's the point you're making now.
My point is that Patrick Mahomes has 5 more touchdowns and 3 less interceptions, and I don't know how Josh Allen and he can be the same thing.
I'm saying they're the same type of personality. I mean, Mahomes is the MVP. Mahomes is the MVP. There's no question about it. I think they play the game with a similar style. They have similar skills.
Similar strengths.
I mean, Mahomes has made a lot of the same throws Josh Allen has made the last 2-3 weeks that have wound up being picks. I mean, if you're not willing to accept that, I can't tell you what game you've been watching. The difference is that he's better coached, and he's had Tyreek Hill, which I think makes a difference. It's gone now, and Travis Kelce. But I think Josh Allen is playing in much the same way as Mahomes played earlier in his career, and that he's trying to accomplish something, and he forces things at times. And I think that, and part of this with Patrick was the talent he had around him was like what Josh has around him now, which is sometimes Josh Allen plays as if we can do whatever we want. It doesn't matter. We're going to win. And if you start thinking that way as a quarterback, you are going to do something stupid. And I think that's what we've seen. I think by far, there's no question Mahomes is winning the MVP unless something just implodes.
But how about this point? Josh Allen has had a top 5 defense and can't get it done, while Mahomes went to the Super Bowl with Daniel Sorensen playing on his defense, or was in conference championship games with the 31st ranked defense. I mean, that does. I mean, again, I know we've acknowledged that Mahomes is better, but there is, like, when it's all on the quarterback's shoulders, Mahomes responds better than anybody in the league today.
And I would say, what I always love about that argument is that Josh Allen's played 4 years in the NFL. And when he started playing in the NFL, he was playing with a team that was nowhere near as good as a team Patrick Mahomes signed up to play with.
He started the same year that Patrick Mahomes began to start.
Yeah, so he's played 4 years, right? This is his 5th year in the NFL.
The same as Mahomes.
Yeah, Mahomes has been there for 5. But the point I'm making is that Mahomes joined a team that was definitively better than what Josh Allen joined. And so to ding him for not having done these things is to completely overlook the fact that he's been playing with a team that's been trying to build itself into what Patrick Mahomes joined.
I think that's fair. To ding him for it is unfair. I think that's a valid point that you're making. It's unfair to ding him for it. But I think when the comparisons come up, it is Exhibit A, right? Like that's why there's not the comparison. Yes, no one, look at Aaron Rodgers. It took him way longer to get there, and he hadn't done anything since, but he's still a great quarterback. Absolutely. But the like I said, the first exhibit that you're going to give in a trial of this is, okay, 4 straight conference championship games, 2 straight conference championships, a Super Bowl championship, come from behind wins, trailing by double digits in playoff games, and coming back and winning. A winning record, went down by double digits. All those things are the evidence as to why.
And so why don't you love Troy Aikman more?
Because all he did was hand off to Emmett Smith. And there's a 10-point lead.
Okay, Eric, take it from here.
Because
is this one of those?
I've thrown almost as many
come and get your
touchdowns
guy
as
over
Troy
here.
Aikman.
Yeah,
I've thrown almost as many touchdowns as Troy Aikman. You got to be kidding me. Troy Aikman
Eric, help me out here.
Anything.
Yeah.
Troy Aikman got down to the 49ers.
Well, championships matter. Championships matter.
God's sakes,
winning matters.
Petro, Troy Aikman's peak was a good freaking peak. It
Right,
started
it was good. At the Hall of Goodness, he belongs in it. Let's move on to JuJu Smith-Schuster's, because I don't think anybody wants to hear it. We'll argue that on Too Deep.
Well, we got to argue that off season. We just have to have some. We have to have one where we just duke it out on some players. Like
okay, all right, I'm all for it. Was the hit on JuJu Smith-Schuster legal, Jeff? How should that have been handled in that game?
Well, no penalty flag, no fine yet. Looks legal to me, and I know that you don't want to see anybody in that position. The way he was laid out is very scary to watch, and certainly very scary for him and his family and the team to go through. But when I saw the play in real time, it looked a lot worse. When I watched it on replay, to me, it looked like Cisco came in, turned a little sideways, threw his shoulder in. I think the helmet-to-helmet contact happened, but I think it was more incidental than it was anything that he was trying to do. Again, if he wanted to clean him up, he could have cleaned him up. I mean, he could have laid him out if he launched himself in the way that people were launching themselves 10 years ago, and in the way that the league does not want to see that happen today. So I feel bad for JuJu, but I can see why there wasn't a flag.
Yeah, I'm with you, Eric. Jeff, I see it exactly the same way. Eric?
Yeah, it was weird because, like, on your show yesterday, Sam McDowell took, like, you were like 2 minutes before a break, and Sam took like 14 minutes to talk about how it was this thing. And I'm sort of in the middle. Like, if they would have called a penalty, I would have been fine with it. Obviously, like, there are way more chicken shit stuff in the NFL, like the Taylor Heineke thing last night.
That's Brandon Graham. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, but football's a violent game. Like, we talked about this, right? Like, on a few shows ago, where it's like, we have to stop pretending that we can solve football's violence, right? You have to be willing every once in a while to deal with stuff like this. And, it has to be a teachable moment, as far as, like, if you lead with your shoulder, like, sometimes it's going to be helmet to helmet. You might get a penalty, you might not. But also, if you play football, there's a risk of getting hurt, right? We're all adults here. So I didn't think, I didn't sort of like think it was, this thing where we should start a federal investigation on Andre Cisco.
Yeah. Sam was pretty upset about it, right? I caught tail. He was pretty much like that was horrible.
Said it's
Shouldn't
horrible to
happen.
watch, sickening to
Out.
watch,
Yeah.
which I had to put a good way. My buddy Joe Spiker said, I agree, it's sickening to watch, but it's not what the man was intending to do. If he wanted to really lay him out, he could have. I think you described it perfectly, Jeff. We don't like what the result was. That's JuJu Smith-Schuster in a fencing position, clearly concussed, right? I get it. None of us want to see that. But the intent was not there, and it could have been a lot worse. Like I think, if he really wanted to blow him up, it would have been a lot worse. And I think it looks bad, but they're also, it can't just be, well, every time an offensive player gets hurt, it's a personal foul penalty on the defense, right? Guys get rolled up on, ankles get twisted, knees get turned. That happens, and it can't just be, well, because the result was an injury, the intent must have been to injure. I don't think that's the case. The intent is to hit and hit hard. That's what the game is about. And you can't legislate all the physicality out of the game.
You don't have tools as a defense that anymore because you can't touch receivers down the field. Like you have, like if you're a safety, you have to be intimidating sometimes. Like, and I'm not saying again, like we want to make these guys headhunters or whatever, but there are going to be plays that give rise to things. Like it's football. Like it was the Alex Smith injury in 2018. That was gross as hell. And like, it wasn't like JJ Watt wasn't acting nefariously. It just freaking happens because I'm sorry, earmuffs, Petro. It was an unlucky thing that Andre Cisco ended up giving JuJu Smith-Schuster a concussion. That is what happens sometimes.
You're listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast brought to you by our friends at GAN Asphalt and Concrete. You can check them out right now, GANAsphalt.com. Proudly serving the greater Kansas City area, including Overland Park, Olathe, Independence, Lee Summit, Shawnee, Blue Springs, Lennox, Leavenworth, Leeward, Liberty, and more. Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Very proud to welcome GAN Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot, our fine sponsor and partner here at the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Let's talk about Kadarius Toney. Jeff, are you ready to say that this is a star in the making? Are you ready to say he's at least a serviceable replacement for McCole Hardman? What do you think of what you've seen after Kadarius Toney makes the impact he did last week?
Look, I think he caught 4 passes, and I think it's been pretty incredible. And I said this after the first week that whatever they're doing with Skyy Moore, or whatever Skyy Moore is supposed to be, or whatever is happening with him, I don't understand how a guy shows up and is here for 2 weeks and you have more means to use him, more ways of utilizing him than you do for the guy you took in the second round of the draft and you were touting. And so when he showed up, when Toney showed up, I was like, this is more next year in depth and whatever happens with JuJu. And now I'm beginning to wonder about Skyy Moore. And so I think Toney fits what Andy wants to do. And it has been impressive to see him be utilized the way he's been utilized. He seems like a smart guy. And I guess Mike Kafka having him with the Giants, there's probably some crossover in terminology that's helped him be able to assimilate pretty quickly. It's a little bit mystifying that they've been so creative with him and not with Skyy Moore. But again, I think he's probably better than McCole already, which I think is a benefit for them down the road. And we'll see. I think right now they're scheming him up and giving him stuff that's simple. We'll see what they can do with him in the second half with more time to spend with him. But so far, it looks like a great steal for them. There's no question about it.
Eric?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like one of the first times we're going to see, we're going to see a Brett Veach buying into a first-round pick and that player being an immediate impact player, right? Like a Mike Hughes was fine, but yeah, Toney, I agree with Jeff. I think it's a little bit of a mark on Skyy Moore that he can contribute, especially, when you get JuJu injured, like that's the guy that Skyy Moore is here to replace at some point, right? And there was just not a ton in the way of production for him. So yeah, I'm a little bit I'm a little bit mystified by that. But yeah, it was encouraging, and it's encouraging to see the process in place, right? The reason they got Kadarius Toney in place was because JuJu and MBS both have injury history, and JuJu gets injured, and he comes in, and they have a resilient receiving core. That's exactly like the thing that's going to derail the Chiefs, as we talked about this in the first half hour of the show, was injuries. And they get more like real talented people into the building as depth, and you all of a sudden don't have, you're not complaining the way that the Chargers are when their wide receivers get hurt.
What I will say is this: when talent becomes available, you grab it. I don't care what you have. Now, this happened to be a need position, but we know that they were looking for him. This has been a move. Like, this is not out of character for Brett Veach, right? Just the early returns are good. But Eric, how many times have you rambled off all the guys that are former first-round picks, second-round picks, and the Reggie Raglins of the world that they've got? And Reggie Ragland was a fairly productive player for the Chiefs. Let's keep in mind he played a significant role in the postseason en route to winning a championship.
Like he was started last year. Like, I mean, they're just not first round. They don't produce like first rounders do.
Yeah, Kadarius Toney, I think, has a bigger name. Is much more of it because he's a receiver and because of the way he plays the game, his stop-start ability, the top-end speed, is a showier player, right? But I think we'll still see if he's anything. Right now, I think he's trending. He's trending as a replacement to McCole Hardman. And when McCole Hardman's, and I'll stick up, I think of more of McCole Hardman than you do, Jeff. I think he's a valuable weapon. And I think, Skyy Moore, I think, has nothing to do with this. Right. He was acquired because they know they need receivers starting in 23 and because they liked him coming out in the draft in 21. And they knew that he was probably falling, I'm sure, somewhere at over beers at a combine or after what, they got in, their boy, Mike Kafka had a couple with all the fellas and we'll see what happens with, okay. Well, we'd be interested. Right. That's how those things happen. If you can't make it work at one place, maybe you can make it work someplace else. I don't think there has to be and not that either one of you guys are saying this, but I think some people want to make it out to be, it's got to be like, well, he's undercutting so-and-so. He allows them to be more patient with Skyy Moore. He allows Skyy Moore to continue to develop. I'm not going to tell you there's anything, not one. I will say that I'll go further than you on the negative side of Skyy Moore. Name one thing that has been a positive for Skyy Moore yet. And both Eric, you and I were on board with this pick. We like the tackle breaking numbers. There was a lot to like about it. Name anything. I don't think Kadarius Toney has anything to do with Skyy Moore. A guy they liked became available for a price they thought was real at a position they need next year, whether Skyy Moore's on that team or not. They only had 3 wide receivers under contract. That's a no-brainer. So that, to me, that's one thing over there. It's completely separate. But second of all, Skyy Moore it's not to say he can't develop into something. Can anyone name anything?
Well, no. I mean, to answer your question, no. But again, I think the things that they're doing with Kadarius Toney are not like rocket science type stuff. I mean, the first pass he caught was just like a bubble screen.
Right.
They didn't run a bubble screen for Skyy Moore unless I missed something here. I mean, just get down to the goal line. What they did with Josh Gordon last year when he was doing nothing, got down to the 5-yard line and just threw on a pass and he scored a touchdown and made his day. I'm just saying, they didn't even do that for the guy. And so I don't get why it's so much harder for him to be involved. And it's clearly the stuff they're doing for Toney is very, very simple, basics, simplistic stuff. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I will tell you that in training camp, and I didn't see as much as like the beat guys that were there every day, but I was there a number of days. They seem to want to get him the ball in the backfield, run him. Like that was one of the big things. And we haven't seen that part to him. Yeah. And I think he can still get there on down the road. But listen, the pedigree of Kadarius Toney is better, right? Measured coming out amongst his draft class, he went 20. Skyy Moore went at the end of the second round. There's 40 picks difference between these two players at a time where somewhere in that range, like the Chiefs went to 21 to get McDuffie because they thought he was one of the last real first rounders on the board. Kadarius Toney went a pick higher at 20. Skyy Moore's down at the bottom of the second, where depending upon that draft, it may be the realm where everybody goes, these are all third rounders anyway.
Yeah, but right? was that draft that Toney came out as loaded as the draft that Moore came out of? That's what I'm trying to. I know Jamar Chase came out in that draft, but who else was coming out in that class?
So it was Waddle. It was Devontae Smith. I think Tony was the next one.
I'll give it to you by receivers. Number 5, Jamar Chase. Number 6, Waddle. Number 10, Devontae Smith. Those were the big 3 that went there. Kadarius Toney was 4th at 20. Rashad Bateman went 27. Elijah Moore of the Jets, now wanting his way out of town, went 34 early in the second round. Rondale Moore to the Cardinals at 49 in the second round. Dwayne Eskridge to Seattle.
So it fell off.
56, Tutu Atwell at 57. Terrace Marshall, Carolina at 59. Those were your first 2 rounds. So no, it was not as good a class, seemingly. Certainly wasn't the class with Pittman and T. Higgins and that was really
Pickens.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We've seen the last of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Eric, and any kind of significant role.
Have we seen him?
4 snaps.
We've seen him.
4 snaps.
I think. Draft capital carries, right? Like Pacheco had a nice little game the other day. Didn't grade that well. PFF, I think a lot of that was the fumble, but he was productive. I thought the offensive line blocked extremely well, by the way. Clyde didn't get 1 carry. He got 2 targets. Both of them were incomplete. So he's gone. But I've seen this a number of times. Growing up in Minnesota, Michael Bennett would just be in the doghouse for weeks, and then randomly Mike Tice would pull him off the bench and play him because again, people stick to their draft priors. So my prediction is we'll see Clyde be the feature running back for this team again. But for whether that reason is Pacheco gets injured, Pacheco struggles. We've already seen some question marks about McKinnon's health going into last game. He played, of course. But yeah, for right now, he's not playing. So, and I'd be surprised if he played that much over the next month.
Do you think you see Clyde Edwards-Helaire make any kind of significant impact in a Chiefs uniform again, Jeff?
I don't know. I could make a Ronald Jones joke here, but I'm going to try to be above board.
You can make a joke at my expense. I'm the dumbass that said he would have 1,500 yards from scrimmage this year.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to bring you down either. I wanted you to enjoy that steak that Eric is paying for whatever that Cardinals bet you guys made. Look, I think I understand what Eric is saying. I just watching it play out. I just don't think Andy Reid just whimsically makes these kind of decisions. It's, to me, if you read between the lines, they have been trying every which way they can to get Isaiah Pacheco more opportunities. And finally, when they started him, they were very open about the enemy and Reid talking about how can we get him more touches and more involved in the offense. And it just feels like they don't do that with Clyde. I don't hear any attempt to say, hey, they could have come out and said, he only had 3 touches and maybe that happens tomorrow. But if it doesn't, then you're going to know, hey, he's done. So I feel like, I think he's trending to a place where, it's time to start thinking about where you want to live in a couple of years, because you're not going to be a part of this operation much longer. I mean, they love Pacheco. I know that I know you guys sit here and have, kind of maligned him for his vision and his 3.7 yards per carry average in college, and just,
Neither Eric or I were certainly on his PR team. Eric was certainly even further.
I'm sorry, but Petro, Petro has one thing in common with Clyde, and he has one thing not in common with Clyde. They're both the same height, but Petro could have run through those holes on Sunday. That's the difference between Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Soren Petro. I know Thomas, yes, he's had 2 nice little games. The Chiefs' run blocking has been pretty damn good for 2 years. Somebody with a pulse can run through those holes, and Pacheco did. And frankly, some of them were. It's the Jaguars' defense, boys and girls. That I think. I just think it's one of those things where this is an offense where the quarterback's Patrick Mahomes. And the whole reason to draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the offensive line was going to be able to open holes because of all of the stuff that Patrick Mahomes gives you, the too high stuff, the linebackers don't move. You look at the tracking data, that's absolutely true. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been so bad, and whether that's because of injuries, I know he had that tumor in his back or whatever, and like, you know, that some of those things are actually sad and not be, you know, because he sucks or whatever. But like, they need a running back with a pulse, and like Pacheco is at least that. I don't think he's that good, and I think like you put any running back off the street and they can produce what he did on Sunday against the Jaguars, but that is a bar that Clyde has not exceeded. So.
Yeah, I listen. I don't think we're going to see him again unless somebody goes down and they really need the help. That's the only way I can see that coming about. Let's talk a little bit about the offensive line. Andrew Wylie goes down. Jeff, where's your concern level with him if he's not able to play?
I mean, there was concern when he was playing, so it's definitely higher.
There should be none now, right?
What's it, Prince Wahango? What's the guy's name?
Prince Tegawagu.
What is it?
Prince Tegawagu.
Tegawagu. Okay.
Hold on.
Okay. No, nobody knows his name on this, so that makes me concerned already.
He was having a good game against the worst #1 overall pick that I've ever seen.
Prince Tega Wanago. Wanogho. He's been around for 3 years.
Schooling me on how to pronounce a name is my drug, by the way.
Okay. So and my concern, I think when they play good teams that have good pass rushers, it's going to be an issue. Now, I don't know how long Wylie's going to be out, if he's going to play this week or not, but it was a problem with him and Orlando Brown to begin with. We've clearly chronicled that throughout the course of this season on this podcast. And so they've been able to not see those kinds of teams, over the last couple of weeks. The Titans gave them some problems. They had a pretty good defensive front, but the Jaguars, we knew coming in they weren't a sack machine. Who else is down the road? Maybe the Broncos can give them some problem with their pass rush. They don't have a great team, but they can get after you defensively. The Bengals have Trey Hendrickson and Hubbard, and they've got some guys who can make some plays off the edge. So I'm not encouraged by him being banged up. But if you're going to number 2 at that spot or even at left tackle, it's just not a good thing for the Chiefs as far as protecting their quarterback.
Tayshaun Prince, by the way, that's a pull from back in the day.
I like the Purple Rain by Matt. Shining this November rain. Look, I pointed out his grade. It's a handful of snaps, but he graded better than Orlando Brown did. Better than Orlando Brown's season grade in this one game. Graded better on the running than the passing, but they were doing probably more running when he was in there than passing. Eric, what do you see on the field? Did you see an appreciable difference between he and Andrew Wylie?
No, because Andrew Wylie is a replacement level right tackle. Like,
yes,
this is back to my thesis of like, and again, like I joke, but when Andy Reid gives a crap, like the tackles, they don't matter as much. When Andy decides to wake up in the morning and eat his Wheaties, we're not talking about how bad Orlando Brown and Andrew Wylie / Prince are. We're just saying, oh my goodness, Patrick Mahomes is great. If Andy Reid is part of the solution, like they could play a stump at right tackle as long as the Trey Smiths and the Creed Humphrey and the Joe Toonies are fine. Like they can work around this. Like I feel like we'll eventually see Lucas Niang there. But I think for now, like Andrew Wylie was a replace. Like how many teams did Andrew Wylie start for in the NFL?
One, the Chiefs. He was cut by the Browns when they sucked.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so like he's the R in war.
Replacement level. Yeah, I get it. I get where you're coming from. All right, so no concerns there. If Lucas Niang comes back, that's the guy that'd like to be there. Hold your breath and see if that ends up happening, though. Trent McDuffie, Jeff, you don't seem to be in love with Trent McDuffie just yet. What are your thoughts on what you've seen from the young quarterback?
I think he's a fine player. And I've seen some things or read some things that he's playing tremendously, and he's like they're throwing again. I'm not trying to disrespect the guy, but I'm just saying what he's facing is not exactly the toughest. He's not facing Jamar Chase or Stephon Diggs right now. And so I've liked him coming in. I think he'll be a really good player. I think he's done well in the time he's been out here and not really had to face much. But really, all they've thrown over there was just jump ball fades, and I haven't seen him cover anybody outside of just the stuff that's pretty basic for a quarterback to do. So, I don't think the defense changed when he walked back into the lineup.
I'd have to go back and look at how many times he faced off against Christian Kirk, and I get it that Jamar Chase he has not faced, and if you go back, the Arizona Cardinals were without DeAndre Hopkins. That was the first game he played in. Then against the Titans, we know that they're challenged at wide receiver, and their young rookie was out in that game, and then Jacksonville. But Christian Kirk can play. Zay Jones has been around. I think the Jaguar game was more of a challenge. We know that it's not like I know they got a boatload of sacks, but somebody was doing something, right? Like if they weren't covering, how do they get all the sacks? Because they're not a great pressure team. They're sacking more this year, but they got 3 defensive lineman sacks, 1.5 from Chris Jones, half from Carlos Dunlap, 1 from Kung Fu Panda,
Kylan
Saunders. Tell me he's not Kung Fu Panda. Tell me he is not absolutely.
By the way, I got to eat some crow here. That is a player who has developed because he was butt at the first 3 years with this team. So I take back a little bit of the slander that I had that said the Chiefs don't develop players. Look, Derek Nottie cancels it out because Derek Nottie was a good player and he is garbage now. But Kylan Saunders was unplayable when he came onto the team for 3 years, and now the guy can actually play football. So I take back a little of my slander. But yeah, Kung Fu Panda can play football.
So my point though is which was it then? Right? If they weren't
their coverage, Soren, they have good depth in the secondary. Jalen Watson won them a game in week 2. My guy is not playing right now, right? He's backing up a division. Joshua Williams is playing the same level of college football last year that I played 17 years ago. And now he's the starter. And Trent McDuffie's there. And they have their safeties. They got 3 safeties. When's the last time we saw one of their safeties look like Daniel Sorensen last year? Never. Yeah. This team can cover. And the thing you said last year, which is, oh my God, they're getting great pressure, but they're not finishing. Well, when they can cover, you can finish plays a little bit better.
I saw one of the knocks though, Jeff, on them, and I read them just to see write-ups on the teams to get national perspectives about what they were looking at. But one of the things I saw knocking the Chiefs was that they passer rating against is 101. Quarterbacks collectively are throwing for better than a 100 passer rating against the Chiefs DBs. And I was talking about it with friends, and they're like, well, a lot of that's catch up. It's the Chiefs have got them down. It's Tom Brady putting up stats after the Bucs had already lost the game. The Cardinals scoring 2 or 3 touchdowns after that game was really lost. Everything. It's okay to go ahead and pick them off too. It's okay to go ahead and take them off the field. You don't have to give up the yards and everything. So I think I would describe it. Tell me if you'd agree with this. There's potential there. They're young guys.
Yeah.
And, they could be really good.
I've never not said that. I think from day one, I said I like the potential in this group. I think it's going to be a good defense once everybody grows up and develops. I like McDuffie. I like the young corners. But I also feel like when you're a young corner, until you've seen real number 1 receivers, it's hard for me to sit here and be like, oh my God, can you believe what this guy's doing? It's the same thing with George Karlaftis. I don't sit here and bash George Karlaftis because he didn't have 8 sacks. I'm like, George Karlaftis is learning how to play football. It doesn't mean that he's a bad player. He's figuring it out. And I think the same thing is happening with Trent McDuffie. But I get a little more, I chuckle more when I see players like McDuffie get hyped up when they're not really doing a whole lot to deserve the hype. If he's going out there and he's shutting down Stephon Diggs in the playoffs, or if he's shutting down whoever, Keenan Allen comes in here healthy, or whoever, Devontae Adams, when those receivers have come through town, they've had big games against the Chiefs. And so that's what I think about. I don't think about what Austin Hooper does in the Titans or Christian Kirk. I think about guys who you're going to see in the playoffs who are high-level players at that position, because that's who you have to beat to win championships.
Are you confident they can beat some of those or play with some of those better wideouts, Eric?
Yeah, but I think the bar for me
that was a painful, yeah. by the way.
But the bar for me for Trent McDuffie, and I'm all about these draft picks have utility to this team. For me, Trent McDuffie is about contributing to a defense you can win with, and he's passed that test for me with flying colors. Like the Chiefs don't need a shutdown corner; they need a guy who's not a complete disaster. And I know that that's like weird coming because they traded up for him and all that kind of stuff, but like he's a good corner on a defense that they frankly can win with. Like this defense is at worst a neutral thing for the Chiefs, and I think. And on a good day, an asset, and he contributes to that. I know he's not a shutdown guy, but I don't think they're asking him to be that.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Are the Chargers just a bad matchup for the Chiefs based upon how that first game went and how the Chargers have played since? Or did the Chiefs have an off day? Chargers have a good day, and if both teams show up, the Chiefs should win easily. Jeff, how do you view this next one?
I think they always play close games, and so I'm expecting a close game again. I think I expect a close game because they're talking about Keenan Allen and Mike Williams playing in this game. You walk out there without them and without those two, and then Gerald Everett got hurt in that last game against San Francisco, so I don't know where he's at. So he's your top tight end. It's going to be hard to move the football, but I give, as much as people, we've talked about their injury issues, I give them credit for being still relevant and in the race with as much as they've lost. And I do feel like they've got the way they play defense, the way that they're familiar. They're familiar enough with the Chiefs' offense and what they want to do that they're able to create issues at times. Quarterback, despite what Eric says, is a pretty good player and makes plays in these kind of games. So, I wouldn't pick the Chiefs to lose this game, but I also feel like it's probably going to be a lot closer than the betting lines would say.
We'll get our pick in a minute after we give Eric a chance to blow up Justin Herbert. But your thoughts on this matchup? Let's wait just the matchup first. What do you think of the matchup?
The biggest reason the Chargers have a good time against the Chiefs is that Derwin James can cover Travis Kelce. That is number one. The matchup. When you think about the teams that give the Chiefs difficult times, it's teams that have good safeties. Kevin Byard is a damn good. Kevin Byard is the Devin McCourty of the Titans, right? And that's probably why they do better defensively than their personnel decides. Derwin James can cover Kelce in a very, the same way that Eric Berry used to really do a good job of covering Gronk. On that side of the ball, that's the matchup, right? And so I think that is the hard part, especially without Tyreek Hill. It's just like they run a really good kind of odd coverage, cover three, and their safety can cover Travis Kelce, and that's the bad matchup for the Chiefs. I think defensively the Chiefs have done really well against the Chargers for the most part, right? Last year, I thought that they did a good job containing them. Previous years, I thought the defense was the reason they won the games in 19, for example. But on offense, the Chiefs struggle because their best player has not an equal, but a player that can slow him down in Derwin James on the other side.
All right, Justin Herbert. Before Eric blows up, Jeff, what do you think of him? What is he now? As he gets ready to face the Chiefs?
I think he's still a really good quarterback. I mean, I think Eric's the only one I know.
I'm not on team bandwagon, so you can throw me.
But is he the third best quarterback in the league? Because that is what the Ringer has him rated as. He was one of the favorites to be the MVP going into the year. I don't think Justin Herbert's bad. I think Justin Herbert is overrated. That is my my issue with Justin Herbert is, and I tweeted
Glad
this
we
out.
let Jeff go first.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right. I got called out and I got defensive. Go ahead, Jeff. My bad.
I just look. I always laugh when people have issues with players, and you say, "Well, where'd you hear this about him? Who's saying this?" Oh, Skip Bayless was saying the Ringer is right. It's like, who cares? It's one opinion. I think most people who watch the NFL would tell you he's a top 10 quarterback. I wouldn't put him in my top 3, but I can tell you that he's done a lot of things in this league that other quarterbacks have not done. He's been a Pro Bowl player. What?
What has he done in this league that other quarterbacks have?
Go to the Wikipedia page and look at the numbers. That I think he's got like whatever innocuous stat they threw out there about
he might be the
yards
first really
first
good
two
quarterback to
seasons,
get two
yards,
coaches
touchdown
fired
in the
in
first 2
4 years.
seasons, like fastest to this. Like his numbers are right up there. He's got records.
Yeah, I get those releases too. They're right. He is ticking off a lot of those statistics.
Yeah. And so I even think that he's playing through a rib injury, a pretty painful rib injury. I think that obviously he's a super talented guy. I just feel like he's a top 10 quarterback, and I get that they haven't won anything yet with him. But again, he's been playing for 2 years, so I think there's a lot to like about about his future.
Before we give the floor to Eric, tell me what do you make of 20-21 career record then?
Who you talking about, me?
Yeah, Jeff. What is 20-21? 6-9, 9-8, 5-4.
Well, the first year he was a rookie that wasn't supposed to be playing.
Okay.
So I would discount that. The second year, they were 1 game away from making the playoffs. They're 5-4 this year with half the team injured. So I think that he's doing okay.
Okay. Have at it, Eric.
Okay. I agree wholeheartedly with Jeff that Justin Herbert is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. We'll get that out of the way. Okay. So I'm arguing with the fact that there are, and again, maybe, but there are like Steven Ruiz is a well-reasoned guy. Mina Kimes is a well-reasoned analyst. There are plenty of people who are not hot take artists who put Herbert in the same conversation as Patrick Mahomes in the preseason. And that is why the Chargers were the darling for half the analysts to win the Super Bowl. And the Chiefs were thought of the Chiefs weren't even favored against the field to win the AFC West for the first time since Pat was like, all these things are real. All the hype on Herbert was real. And I'm telling you, my issue is if I'm talking about my quarterback, when everybody's like, well, Joe Lombardi's the reason that they're losing. Oh, they just run the underneath stuff and they're not using him properly. You are management if you are a quarterback. You walk into the building and say, I'm firing Joe Lombardi or I'm holding out. Like if you are a quarterback in the NFL and you and you're a person for whom the entire media makes excuse after excuse after excuse, you're not that good. Like you're just not. And again, we're spoiled because we get to watch Mahomes every single year, host AFC title game after it. And my guy's they traded his best receiver. And the guy's going to have 2,000 yards for the Dolphins. And my guy's throwing to something called Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And he's not complaining a damn bit. He's leading the league in points. He's leading the league in EPA. Or I think the Dolphins are maybe ahead because of Tyreek Hill, by the way. They have the best record in the AFC. The difference between a truly superstar quarterback like Mahomes and a guy like Herbert, who's kind of talented but never going to win a damn thing in this NFL, is that Mahomes is management and Justin Herbert just works there. And that is a difference. And that is why Justin Herbert won't win a damn thing for the San Diego Chargers.
Yeah, and here's what I would say to that, and I'll let you go through it next. Like in the NBA, LeBron James has been the best player for the last 20-some years in the NBA, maybe arguably the best player ever. Doesn't mean that Steph Curry or Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving or Paul George or whoever you want to throw out there, Kawhi Leonard suck. Like it's okay to have a great player and then have other people who are beneath that player who are really good. Now maybe they get overhyped.
Who are making the playoffs. Like Karl Anthony Towns makes the playoffs, Jeff. Like this, like
and so if the Chargers make the playoffs this year, your whole argument changes about Justin Herbert. Is that what you're telling me?
A little, but I mean, they're grinding it out right now. They had the same record as Mac Jones's and Bailey Zappi's New England Patriots. Like they were also in the hunt for the playoffs last year, and they lost to Rich Bisaccia and Derek Carr.
Yeah,
I do think that there are more. I don't think Eric's his beef is with Jeff. I think you guys are 90% on the exact same page. I mean, I think you're arguing over the last 10%. I think there are those that are early on, and you mentioned like the Skip Baylesses of the world, the clickbait types. You don't get paid to say, when Mahomes first hit the scene, you get paid to say he's the best. He might be the best in the league, and then he is the best in the league. And then I mentioned it. Max Kellerman in that 2018 season called him the best quarterback that's ever lived, because people had already said he might be the best. He's as good as anybody else. He's the best right now. So you got to top that, right? And so I think Justin Herbert, and he has won those statistical, and Jeff's right on those things, because I get the release of the league is like most touchdowns through this many games. He's not on any of the wins, right? Like Patrick Mahomes has like 4 games to win 2 to have the most wins. I think he's headed towards 80 wins in his first 100 starts. So like he's going to break Ken Stabler's record. He's right now 1 win away, and I think he's got 3 games to get there. So he's likely to break that and have the most wins. If he wins all 3, he'll be 80, or maybe it's 75 and 15 in his first 90 games or something like that. So he'll it's something ridiculous like that. 60 and 15. He's winning 4 out of 5. He's winning like an 800 win percentage overall. We're not hearing that for Herbert. So I mean, I do think there is, but I think it's dying down now, right? Herbert was the new flavor, so people wanted to jump on that. He's not the new flavor anymore. And just as we've seen people try to initially equate that Tua can't play, well, now he's playing well. Well, it's all Tyreek Hill, because I can't have been wrong on what I said before. Yeah. And so there is a little, I think there is, and that's what I think drives Eric Eager crazy. But I'm like, if we were to name one quarterback, or to give me 2 quarterbacks whose careers are either over or almost over, that you would equate to what you think Justin Herbert will be. I'll go first. Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers. Right? Is that where you're going, Eric? They're very good quarterbacks. Matt Ryan almost won a Super Bowl, did win an MVP. Phillip Rivers is near the top of all the statistical categories, won a lot of games early in his career, even won some playoff games. But neither one of them are ever going to be talked about as one of the greats of all time. That's how I would
equate. It could even be somebody like Tony Romo.
Yeah, guys, he's played 2 seasons. He's played 2 full seasons.
Yeah. Just to set the expectation. Listen, if he wins 5 Super Bowls in a row, I'll change that and go. Tom Brady.
I mean, when the world changes, I change my mind.
Yes, with new information, I reserve the right to change my mind. What's your view right now of when his career is over, Jeff? Give me a quarterback that the career will look like?
Warren Moon.
Okay, it's pretty similar.
Yeah, Warren took a team to the playoffs, but yeah, I mean,
like, you really think Justin Herbert's never going to play in a playoff game, have like meaningful games in this? And you're a smart guy, Eric. You know as well as I do. The odds of that not happening,
bet him, Jeff.
Favor me.
When he's willing to just hand out stakes, see if he'll grab it.
Okay, Jeff. Let me ask you a question. Okay, over the next 5 years, how many division titles does Justin Herbert win?
Well, he's got a pretty big roadblock in his way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was told
we've gone from playoffs to division titles. So what's it going to be? Is it division titles, playoffs, Super Bowls? I think he will win a division title in his year. In his career, I think he will play in a Super Bowl. I can't say he'll win one, but I think he's a good enough quarterback.
You yourself, Eric, don't think he's Tom Brady. So why would you ask the man? Phillip Rivers, I think, is a good comp. When Peyton Manning was in his way, he couldn't overcome him, and that's kind of what's going on right now with Herbert. I mean, and I like the Warren Moon comp. Warren Moon was a polished quarterback when he finally got to the league because of the ridiculousness of how the position worked back then. But he was on a bad team, and he was very good, Hall of Fame good, but he didn't win automatically. But I don't think anybody, blames the Oilers didn't lose to the Bills that day because Warren Moon didn't show up.
I think Justin Herbert is like he's a very good quarterback but you're always coming up for air and asking why the heck can he not win? And we saw it in the first Chiefs game. You get a 10-point lead, and you go 3 and out 3 consecutive drives. Like that is like when Patrick Mahomes did that for one game in a second half of one game. We spent this entire offseason talking about did he lose his fastball? Herbert does that every freaking game. And like,
what are his stats against the Chiefs? Look him up, Soren. I guarantee you he's played pretty good against the Chiefs and throughout his career.
Here we go. So against the Chiefs, which I can do that one click away here, opponent. Okay, against the Chiefs, Herbert, 33. Let's see, is this in chronological order? 22. Let me go back to his first one. I'll take it from his first one. 22 of 33 for 311, 1-1. That's the loss when they decided to stab Tyrod Taylor in the lung with a syringe.
Big interception to L'Jarius Sneed in that game that basically lost him the game. But yeah,
in fact, and it was his first start of the day. He didn't know he was going to start. I mean, come on, you're turning your allies against you, Eric. Careful. Second game. 22 of 31 with 302, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 30.
That was the Chad Henne game where the Chiefs played their backups. But yeah, good game.
Next time, 30-24 winner. He goes 26 of 38 with 4 touchdowns and no INTs. That
Not
was
a bad game.
That was 9/26 of last year, September 26th. Let's see.
82.8 passer rating in the loss on Thursday Night Football against the Chiefs last year with the division title on the line.
34-28 loss. He goes 22 of 38 with 2-1, 236 yards passing. And then this year in the loss, the 27-24 loss, he's 33 of 48 for 334, 3-1. I mean,
the one was returned for a touchdown to lose the game. Yeah.
So I think, to Jeff's point, I think those are some pretty solid numbers. In fact, I'll give you here. I can click on it and give you the what it is collectively.
Yeah, he's Dave Craig to Dan Marino.
Collectively, well, this is going.
Ken O'Brien to Dan Marino. Ken O'Brien had some nice games against Dan Marino.
You're calling him. So I asked you for a quarterback. What quarterback are you putting on it?
Dave Craig. Dave Craig put up some damn good numbers.
You're calling Justin Herbert Dave Craig.
The 80s Dave Craig? Look it up. He's Dave Craig to Dan Marino.
Dave Craig was like a 6'1", 180-pound passer with a competent arm.
I can't get it to just give me the games I wanted to give me, but overall, just the touchdown marks.
A top 15 passer in the history of the league.
13 touchdowns and 3 interceptions against the Chiefs. Now, granted, not the best defense, but he's going toe-to-toe against Patrick Mahomes. That's not bad. That's not bad.
That's not Dave Craig.
Yeah, it's not Dave
Craig. Like I said, Dave Craig. Dave Craig was better than you guys think. And Herbert's better than I think, probably.
I watched Dave Craig quarterback the Chiefs, and I watched him quarterback the Seahawks against the Chiefs. I know that. And I'm, 10, 15 years older than you? I know more about Dave Craig than you'll ever think about, crying out loud. As far as actually watching, well, you do sit around and watch old games all the time, so I better shut my mouth. You maybe have watched Dave Craig's entire catalog of games.
His 92 year with the Chiefs was a privilege. That was a Marty Schottenheimer quarterback at that time. But in the 80s, he threw the ball around the park. And you look at his numbers; they're damn good numbers. Career. I think Herbert is a top 6 to 10 quarterback. When I get angry is when I hear his name in the same conversation as Patrick Mahomes. That is my issue.
Yeah. Okay.
No problem. So did Herbert fumble his way through. Like, there's a reason. There are reasons these players don't win that much. Bledsoe's a good one too. I like Bledsoe.
Yeah.
Bledsoe made a Super Bowl. We'll see if Herbert can make the playoffs.
Bledsoe's not bad. I actually think he's going to be better than Bledsoe. All right. When it's all said and done, who wins this game, Jeff?
I got Chiefs 21-20. I just think it's always close. It'll be close again.
Okay. Eric.
Yeah, I'm with Jeff. I think point spread's about 7, so Jeff on the fence there. I'll go
21-20. How's he on the fence?
Oh, sorry. So I thought you said 27-20. Okay. I will go. So Jeff is picking the San Diego Chargers to cover.
I tell you, next time you come to town, Jeff might just kick your ass from one side of the screen to the other. You've been on him big time this episode.
I apologize.
It's Justin Herbert. Some strange relationship he had with Justin Herbert that we don't know about.
No, I mean, it's whatever. All right. I think the Chiefs win. I think it's like 31-27. I agree that I think it's going to be closer. I actually, I would bet the Chargers at +7. I honestly think that's a little bit too high for the Chiefs on the road to be favored, even with the injuries. So
let me ask you a question, Eric. Did Andy Reid call the good plays against the Jags?
Yeah, we got Andy on Sunday. It was good. If we get Drew on Sunday night, it won't be as fun, but I don't think we will. It's Sunday Night Football. Andy's going to come out. The noon games are the 4 o'clock. and the night games, you usually get Andy. But on 1 o'clock Eastern, you know it's a coin flip.
I think you see a team that smells it now. I think they're in position. They've got the 1 seed. I don't think they're giving it up. I think that, the Buffalo Bills open the door. I think they are closers. And I think they are assuming the role of the New England Patriots. And every time there'd be times where people are questioning the Patriots all the time. And then eventually you look up, they just hang around. And somewhere about this time of the year, they'd take over that 1 seed and they wouldn't give it back. And I think that's where the Chiefs are. There's a potential, whether it's this game or at Cincinnati, for them to lose that 1 seed. I think there's a really strong chance, though, that they get it back. I think the Ravens are actually the scarier one, which the Ravens are much more susceptible to being upset. But I think when you have that mindset, when they see what's in front of them, they're a veteran team that knows how to focus. I think they zero in on this game. I think the Chargers Lombardi does suck. I think the Chiefs defense is better than advertised. I think it's coming together. Kansas City 33, Chargers 20. I'll take the Chiefs by 2 scores.
Do you want to bet that they'll cover?
Is that one of those Tennessee Titan blowouts?
No, I'm not. I know I'm not nearly as confident as I was of that. For whatever that means, I did have the Chiefs covering against the Jags. They got there. And were there comfortably. They were able to give up the late score that still they covered with. So no, I'm comfortable. I think the Chiefs assert their dominance over the Chargers in this one. We'll see who's right when it's all said and done. Everybody's got the has got the Chiefs beating the Chargers. All right, that's going to do it for us here on Red, Gold, and Bold. Thanks again to our sponsor, GAN Asphalt and Concrete, all things parking lot. Check them out online at ganasphalt.com. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. They do an incredible job. If you've got a business that uses a parking lot, and you've got any kind of issues, whether it's just repairs or brand new, you can see the number right there on the bottom, 816-485-3338. Online at ganasphalt.com. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Eric Eager from Sumer Sports, sumersports.com. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. You can catch my show at 810WHB.com. Thank you very much for catching us here on Red, Gold, and Bold.